following is a conversation with the artist Parham Ghalamdar. In it, we talk about the development of his graffiti practice in Iran, the impacts and contradictions an Americanized upbringing within the Middle East had on his visual practice, and why he travelled to Berlin and back within one day just to see a single exhibition. I've included timestamps, so skip around if you wish, and enjoy. What happened in 1975?
What happened there?
What happened in 1975? So that
Where were you at 9/11?
Do you
Like the weirdest question I can ever ask.
do you not know what 1975 means?
No, what's well, is
Should I
that
tell him or
really
leave it?
embarrassing?
I tell him I'll leave it a secret to the end.
Is that really embarrassing? Like I've missed something really important.
It's just my favourite band from 1975.
Oh, it's the name of a band.
It's the name of a
Okay,
band
okay,
because
okay,
it's the
okay.
1975, not like 1975.
Okay,
That makes sense.
that's an amazing name for a band.
Right, so let's start.
Yeah,
Let's go back to. Let's not go back to when you were born, but like you were born in Tehran in 1994.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
1994.
Great, I've done my research well. And then, and obviously studied there for a bit and was schooled there.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk a bit about about starting specifically in sort of graffiti. So let's not start in kindergarten, but like how you got into graffiti in Iran.
Yeah.
And then also your kind of move into art school from there.
Back in Iran, I was studying mathematics and physics. I got my diploma in that field, and just like any other Iranian family, like that's like the norm back in Iran. Like when it was time to choose my field of studying for university and all that kind of stuff, my dad was like, "You're free to study whatever you want, as long as it's within the borders of mathematics and physics. Like, it's not really your decision." Which I understand the basics of it. Like, it's based on, you can find a job easier in those fields, obviously. And there has been a lot of moments in the past few years that I was like, shit, maybe I should have listened to my dad. I studied mathematics and physics. And I think it really helped later on with my art career as well. In terms of, as a painter, I think you must have some knowledge of geometry. Discipline, basically. Discipline, you especially in the past year, it really showed itself in my personal life with the lockdown and everything. If you're not disciplined, you cannot really manage, being in the studio regularly or making animations regularly just by yourself, making like 24 frames, 10 frames, whatever amount of frames it is per second. You must be absolutely disciplined to do all those kind of things. While I understand, like, a lot of people think of artists and, painters and the art world as in like these Hollywood movies of Velvet Buzzsaw and that kind of stuff, that a bunch of flamboyant people just being freely splashing the paint on the canvas or whatever, and then selling it for millions. But the reality of it is that you need to be disciplined. So I think that diploma in mathematics and physics really gave me that kind of discipline. Going to a public school, studying math, and you have to have some discipline. And then later on, when I changed my field of studying to art, for a few months I did go to art school before going to university, and comparing to a public school teaching math, art school looked like a jungle, really.
What age ranges is this? So the maths. I'm starting to forget the years. Something like that, yeah. In Iran, it's like 5 years of primary school, 3 years of guidance school in between high school and primary school to kind of figure out what you want to study, and then 4 years of high school. So I changed in the third year of high school, so I was like 16 or 17. But yeah, so that was the thing. So I was studying math, and then all those years, since I was 12, which was like first or second year of guidance school after primary school. Since I was 12, I think I was slowly kind of introduced to graffiti and vandalism and all that kind of culture. Like vandalism, by vandalism I don't mean like
damaging public property. I need to kind of clarify that. I mean, by vandalism, I mean like any kind of art making in the public space that is illegal, like doesn't have permission, and also it's against the taste of the authorities. That's what I mean by vandalism. I don't mean like making a fire and destroying shit. And I don't mean
So,
like that.
like, what was your first like actual experience of graffiti? Was it just in the streets and seeing people, or did you have a specific friend who introduced you?
So I think it was in the school. I wrote something on the wall of the school, and it was very visible, and because it was like, so the walls of schools are usually in Iran are decorated with paintings and like calligraphy pieces quoting something from a religious character, or like Prophet Muhammad or something like that. And it's always very neat and clean and like as you expect a calligraphy piece to be. And then I was writing rap R.I.P. on it or something like that. I did something like that, and then it just it was a disaster. It turned into a disaster because like obviously the teachers and the principal of the school and all of those people, they noticed it and they fucking hated it. And then in the morning, every morning in Iran, I don't know if that's still a thing, but back in my days, in the morning kids line up and there's assembly and you read a bit of Quran or the national anthem or something like that. And then if there's something going on that somebody needs to talk to all the students, they bring it up at that moment, and they brought it up. All the kids there who just come and tell us whoever did that. Like they were actively encouraging the students to sell me out.
All right, so like W.
But that was a really I wasn't able to articulate it back then. But now that I think back, I can understand why I loved it, and it became more, instead of scaring me and pushing me back, it actually invited me to do more, because not just they didn't figure out who did it, but it felt so good for me that I could tickle the authority with such a simple thing, So it was like a tiny disorder with no consequences that felt so good, So I felt like more of that, please. So it slowly kind of turned into bigger thing, but then I received graffiti, drew these kind of MTV culture or all these films or video games or these kind of stuff, and I had really no idea about the culture around it. It was just my personal misinterpretations of all the stuff that I see online. So it wasn't really a continuity of there was no real hip-hop community or culture around, right? Or if there was, I wasn't a part of it. So to me, it wasn't about hip hop or anything like that. It was very much about kind of, now that I think about it, it was very much my way of mapping through the city, facing the city, and leaving my marks on this environment, in this really brutal environment. Which has a lot in common with paintings. I mean, with my current paintings and generally practicing painting. No wonder I put graffiti aside and became a painter, like oil painter, and still you can see like references of graffiti in my oil paintings, because it's all connected. If you see painting, especially oil painting, as this kind of sophisticated way of kind of sculpting a footprint, graffiti kind of functions the same way. That in a place, in a city that is constantly developing in a really mindless way. Tehran is developing so quickly, and it's just concrete and metal, and you cannot leave any rendition of any kind of footprint as in a personal individual footprint. A city, you could say a city is a big massive footprint itself, but I mean like an individual kind of liberated kind of personal footprint. You cannot leave any footprint, and so the only way is to scratch on this surface of concrete with graffiti. I feel like I was trying to kind of regulate all those emotions and kind of try to bring things out and understand myself through graffiti,
because there was no other way, there was no other way. My creativity wasn't welcomed at my dad's house, my biological father. And in order to study art, I had to kind of leave my dad and go stay with my mom. So, like, I was going, a lot of personal shit was going on.
Yeah.
So I had to, so that was the only way of this kind of angry teenager trying to kind of bring something out to understand himself.
I think that's why it's like both hidden, because it's hidden from your parents, because you're not in your bedroom. But then it has this sense of authoritarian power over authority, because you're doing things that kind of replicate that feeling you had in front of like the headmaster, where it's like, I've got over the old school and stuff.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. So then how did you so you were part of this crew called Elf Crew. How did you move from like writing on your school walls to...
I just accidentally met them in the street when they were painting on the wall, and I got their number, and for a while they used to think I'm like a spy or something. I'm trying to figure out, infiltrate them. And but then yes, but then eventually I joined them, and we were painting a lot of big walls around Tehran. ELF was among the very first graffiti crews to emerge in Iran and Middle East, possibly. And they were famous for making really big pieces, and they were really into hip hop culture, and like when I say hip hop culture, like really like following the trends and everything. And kind of, I feel like these kind of things like hip hop culture back in Iran are ways to kind of just come up with alternative ways of worlding for yourself. Like you kind of dissociate yourself with the reality around it. So like back in 1980s, when the revolution happened, 1979 revolution happened in Iran. Following the revolution, the Islamists formed a government, and Khomeini's club basically formed a government, and a series of events happened called the Cultural Revolution, which was basically modeled after Chinese Cultural Revolution, to kind of eradicate anything that is not aligned with the ideology of the state, and any kind of other viewpoint, including other cultures that don't fit in the ideology, are not aligned with the ideology, were eradicated. So I feel like this kind of associating yourself with hip hop was kind of a non-political way to kind of differentiate yourself from the regime, or culturally differentiate yourself with the regime, or kind of come up with possible alternative identities for yourself, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, like something neutral that's not against a regime or for. It's just kind of
something.
And when you were saying
maybe,
about when you were saying about how they looked at hip hop culture, are they looking at like Western hip hop culture? And kind of replicating what they were seeing in like the US or exactly. So like exactly. American culture, basically, which is a I mean, there are a lot of parallels here. So like talking about so first of all, graffiti guys in Iran fucking hated me all the time, because I wasn't a part of that. I wasn't obeying that kind of hip hop culture. It was just a curiosity for me, and I wasn't trying to kind of form my identity around that hip hop thing. Tupac was never a big thing for me at that age. I was so everyone hated me. They still do, and I was that black sheep among them that even the vandals didn't like. I was boycotted by the boycotted people, and I thought that I was as much interested in the stencils and wall writings of the revolution happening around 1970s, 1980s, as part of the revolution, the aesthetics of a revolution that you see everywhere. I was as much interested as those, and I saw the roots of my graffiti practice in those as much as those Western cool 3D colorful graffitis, So it wasn't really to me about replicating the West, I could see that I'm a constitute of multiples. I could see that there's so many things leaking into my life and influencing me, and I wanted to kind of keep this curiosity alive. I wanted to keep the cat alive to be curious as much as possible, you know. I could see that kind of desperately wanting the American culture was exactly that is happening with parts of the regime as well. That in the beginning of the revolution, the first decade, there was no restaurants called, like, there were no fake KFCs around Iran.
Yeah.
But now Iran is filled with fake KFCs, right? So like the regime of Iran has kind of moved from this semi-left wing, semi kind of socialist, or kind of copied after the Soviets and Chinese kind of regime, into a kind of a more capitalist kind of regime that enjoys privatizing and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So there is kind of this struggle of power and within the regime, that which way should we go?
Yeah. And it kind of mirrors, I suppose, those things like mirror Western society, but then don't allow it in, or to some extent. So it's kind of like, we don't want a McDonald's, we want our McDonald's. It's a replica, but we'll have 5,000 of them.
Yes, that's
we
so
don't want your
interesting,
McDonald's, which is a US McDonald's, and you'll make the money because the money can stay.
We only want the Iranian McDonald's. Yes, it's like it's a weird thing. It's a really weird thing, because what I'm thinking is that on the British money, on the British pound notes, there is no word about God, but on the American dollar and Iranian notes, there is word about God. Like, in God we trust, and then Iranian one, I forgot whether it says Allahu Akbar or whatever. I forgot. But so and when two gods meet, they go to war. Yeah, they go to war basically. They both believe in might. You know. Yeah, and you can see that in all parts of the country. Like, if you Google the photos of IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and see the generals, the caps they have is very much copied from American baseball caps. Right. Like, no other army in the world has such hats for the generals. Nowhere. It's like there's something really weird over there. Like Iran and America probably hate each other, because when they look at each other, they see part of themselves in the other. There is definitely something like that going on. Definitely.
It's like cultures who don't have, or have identities, but then have lost identities through migration, and people kind of coming in from different places. In America, it's loads of people migrating from different places. And Iran, it's kind of...
Iran is
it's
different.
Like Americanized and, you know, and then Russianized.
And a lot of Iranians have immigrated to America in the past decades, and a lot of big companies you see in America were started by Iranians, including eBay, you know.
So they see themselves because it's themselves in each place, and it's kind of like you've got the same household, but the house looks different, and so it doesn't really matter. If you know what I mean.
And that has always been a part of my work. It has kind of reflected in the subjects that I paint. Like, for instance, the Chicago Bulls cap that I painted, and also I had it in the video when you came visiting me. That's because I had this Chicago Bulls cap since I was, I don't know, 4 years old, 5 years old. And I loved it. It was amazing. And then when I was 4 years old, I had no idea what that thing was. I just loved that angry bull on it, you know. And then my little brother took it to school, and he lost it after 20 years of keeping it safe with myself. He lost it, and then with losing that cap, I feel like I lost a lot of memories or precious things from my childhood. So I kind of tried to kind of regain it through painting, you know, this magical power of painting, that seeing is believing, you know, you have it again in a painting. And the title of the painting is Certified Copy. And then I tried to find that cap, that specific model of Chicago Bulls cap, online, and it didn't exist, and I figured out the one I had was actually a fake one.
Right.
That's why it doesn't exist anywhere. Like, it's not that model wasn't a thing. It was just made in Iran, and somebody was like, "I have these patches of Chicago Bulls. Let's put it on a cap.
Stick about any
it's like
hat.
any hat. Just put it on a hat." This idea exists within a lot of layers of the society and a lot of the cultural products that people use in Iran. Like, Like for instance, the movies which are dubbed in Persian. Like I grew up with, it's not a big thing here in UK, but it was probably a bigger thing in countries which speak French, like Canada probably. This cartoon of God, what was it called? The Lucky Luke cartoon. That showed this kind of poor, lonely cowboy going town to town helping the towns, and it was dubbed in Persian. And the song, a lot of the things were changed through dubbing it in Persian, voicing it in Persian. They've changed things that doesn't match the original one to kind of appropriate it through the filters of the ideology. And a lot of films and stuff are like that. And for some weird reason, some films and cartoons, they changed the soundtracks, and like the soundtrack of the film is different to the original one. Like unnecessary crap. Like why would you change the soundtracks of the film? So I grew up in this situation that in the morning you go to school, and in the assembly, you are asked to say "Deaf to America, kids, Deaf to America," and then you go to the class, and we have an English teacher saying, "Repeat after me, pineapple, pineapple," and
Christopher Columbus.
Christopher Columbus. So you learn English in American accent, and then you go home and you watch Lucky Luke on TV. You constantly get these mixed messages, like which one is like. Is Lucky Luke the good guy or the bad guy? Because in the cartoon it's clearly the good guy, but in the school it was the bad guy. Like, what the hell is happening here? That's basically why nothing makes sense in my paintings, because I grew up through all these absurdities, like hyped, accelerated, crazy level of madness, really. That nothing makes sense. There's no consistency among anything.
It has that, like, the idea, like, central to that is that like then it questions what is an original. So what is an original?
Yes,
what is an original
original
TV program? What is an original like cap? What is an original painting? And I suppose because like now you see like Netflix shows where the format, the concept is the original, but the filming of it and like what's the one that's like Too Hot to Handle? Have you seen that?
No, unfortunately.
It's
It's constantly suggested, recommended on my Netflix.
But it's like it's a bunch of single girls and guys, and they are in like a beach, you know.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Like,
I thought it's like okay, no, I totally misread this.
And then basically they
just for the records, I'm not gonna watch it.
And then basically they have 24 hours to have like to like have whatever they want, like of a time with each other and like have sex and do all this, but then after 24 hours,
oh my god, they managed to have sex within 24 hours.
No, but then
with a stranger.
but the point of it is that after 24 hours they can't have sex or masturbate or do anything that.
Oh, I kind of
so then they're like,
that.
so then they're like in this like constricted environment. But anyway, the point I'm saying this is like a long-winded way to say this, is because they've basically taken that format and put it in loads of different countries. So there's like an American version, English version, a Brazilian version where it's all these sexy Brazilians, and it's kind of like it doesn't really matter about the original. And it's kind of like Love Island, where you've seen that format of Love Island, and sometimes...
Yeah, now I get what you mean. Like exporting the culture, exporting the... Yeah, that's definitely...
Rather than having...
Is that an American show originally?
I don't know.
No. Yeah. Because like definitely the biggest exportation of Britain and America is definitely culture. Definitely the biggest export is culture, no doubt about it. It's not chocolate, Nestle chocolate. It's nothing like that. It's definitely culture through internet and films and whatever.
Maybe let's then talk about like what happened in Iran that kind of made you shift out to Manchester. Because obviously it seems like there's interesting things that are going on, but there's also things that are highly constricting to be like not only a person but an artist and someone who wants to make this kind of work.
So I think curiosity killed me. I think being super curious and constantly looking for answers, and as a young person who also didn't have any position, like as in any
resources or any support from anywhere to kind of support himself. So things went wrong, things went left, things went not left, west. things went west. Yeah. Things went west basically. I was detained a few times, and then the last time I was detained, it was like, okay, no, this is going bad. You need to leave the country. So I basically came here to UK applying for asylum, basically. Yeah. So I didn't immigrate. Yeah. I came here applying for asylum because there was no other option. But between death and life, you always choose life. So
and maybe we should just clarify, like the detainment, like those things are not. I mean, it's not the same as like a UK-based law system where everyone's watching things, so it's a legal detainment. It can be indefinite to the point of...
It's
not legal in the same sense as you get locked up in a night out because you punched someone.
Nothing like that. No, it was basically... So basically, back in Iran, if you are kind of in contradiction to the authorities' ideology, if you're in paradox with that, if they don't see you fit in, and if you're obviously detained as part of graffiti, you wouldn't be charged for vandalism and cleaning the wall and paying a fee. It would quickly escalate and be politicized. Doesn't matter what was the content of your graffiti or whatever. They would associate you with groups and names and things. And in my case, it was even worse because my mom's relatives had some background in kind of armed struggle with the regime in 1980s as part of the revolution and blah blah blah. So like there was this kind of background, which every family in Iran has some political background related to the revolution. Every family was somehow involved in the revolution, So my mom's family were involved in some stuff. So I quickly got associated with them. And then, just things went really bad. Yeah. So I had to leave country, not because I committed a crime or did something terrible. And then I came here, and I quickly was granted asylum because obviously everyone knew what the hell was going on.
Yeah, but I think it's important to say that it's not it's kind of not the same.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't murder someone and escape the country.
But it is a thing of there's not equal levels of legality.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That you mean that? Oh yeah.
And what it is?
Yeah.
If you do graffiti in the UK compared to if you do graffiti in Iran compared to if you do graffiti somewhere
you can still get in such trouble here for 2 years of prison
but
or whatever.
It's not.
But it's still not an equivalent of the situation in Iran, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, because Iran is you're living in an authoritarian dictatorship, kind of institutionalized ISIS, basically. That's what it is. That's what Islamic Republic of Iran is. It's like what's happening right now in Afghanistan. Yeah. Taliban taking over the institutions. Yeah. Becoming institutionalized. That happened in Iran 40 years ago, basically.
So let's go to Manchester now, and you came to Manchester through asylum, and obviously probably wanted to continue with an art practice. So kind of what was your journey from?
Yeah. So as soon as I understood one thing, and that was that this is a new context that my work doesn't fit in anymore. I've lost my audience, and I've lost all the other elements that kind of made my work make sense in Iran. And this is not making any sense anymore. It might look exotic and people love it, but it's not making any sense. It's not functioning at all. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. So I kind of understood that, okay, that graffiti practice is dead now to me. You should continue through some indoor works, indoor activity, like being in the studio making work. Those ideas, those kind of patterns, like decisions about color, or decisions about the style and shape and whatever, those things need to kind of continue in terms of indoor painting rather than being outside.
because I was in this new alien territory I haven't still mapped, and I don't know the sensitivities, and I don't know how quickly I can get into trouble, and I don't know what would be the consequences if I get into trouble. So I was like, okay, no more graffiti at all. And then I was also trying to kind of make sense of everything, because it's such a disorientating kind of experience to suddenly move into somewhere, like moving out of your country and being cut off from your metaphysical and physical roots. And when you move outside of your birthplace, when you move to another country, when you are seeking asylum or immigrating or whatever, it's not just your geography that changes. It's literally, you are figuratively dying and being born again. Your dreams, your goals, your ambitions are just gone. All those things that were comforting you, like all those nostalgic memories, places you visited, people you knew, are gone. All those supporting systems, everything is gone. You're cut off from the past, basically. And it's really kind of a serious situation to struggle with. And you're trying to settle in again. So I was I was studying a lot. I was reading a lot. About parts of the history I'm not told about. I wasn't told about. And it has been a continuous, I'm still doing it. It has been a continuous process of unlearning and relearning. Unlearning all those xenophobic, isolationist, extremist, sexist, racist ideas that the regime teaches you through the educational system, that becomes your norm, and trying to unlearn all of those craps and relearning to walk towards the truth, basically. So it's been a process of that for me, which basically started with studying history of Iran and left-wing history of Iran that nobody talks about it in Iran, and all that kind of stuff, and literature and everything basically, everything that I could find and read. And then paintings. My paintings at the time, we were talking about 2016, 2017, 2018. The paintings were kind of multi-layered. The paintings were trying to gather all those ideas and kind of bind together all those interests in politics and society and history and everything. So the paintings were kind of a really confusing, messed up mind maps. You're in the middle of a mess trying to put things together to make sense of the situation. So the paintings were kind of functioning as kind of mind maps for me, really complicated, confusing mind maps. And I was painting mixed media, larger scale paintings that looked like this amalgamation of graffiti and miniature illustrations and stencils and everything. It looked like something historical, some historical tablets is being vandalized.
And so these are works that you made
in 2017, 2018 doing BA. Yes.
And so and did you go there just as like a, I don't know, like as a clear direction to kind of continue practicing art, is a way, is like to go to art school was kind of tagging on from what you had done in Iran?
No, I wasn't thinking about the practice. I wasn't thinking about that when I chose to go to university and study art and continue and stuff. I was thinking about that, but that wasn't the priority. I was thinking about, okay, how to get established in this society now, how to integrate with this society, how to fit in. Okay, university maybe gives me this opportunity. That was the priority. Then thinking about that, okay, how could the name Parham Ghalamdar, how could that name, or kind of, I know a lot of people hate it, but that's the reality of it, that artist name is like a brand. I was thinking, how could that brand continue now?
And I suppose that's quite an interesting thing that you said, that's like to establish yourself in society, because some people, I think there's other ways you could have, like other paths you could have chosen, where it's about just, you become an artist, or you carry on being an artist, but kind of have a job like on the side. You do whatever, but you are an artist, and but within that you don't necessarily establish yourself in a kind of wider art society.
Yes.
And actually, like the
networking.
If you come in from a completely different place,
Yeah.
it's not only about like having some time and some space to practice art, but it's really probably more importantly about trying to network with people and finding out these situations that are actually really hard to find out about. You don't go through that route.
Exactly what you said. So it was more about networking and connecting with people and trying to find like-minded people, and it was right when Brexit was happening, and I thought it's much easier to find like-minded people like myself in an art school rather than anywhere else out there, because people who come to art school are usually very kind of liberal people usually, you know. You rarely get a really conservative person in on a fine art course. So I thought, that was the most important reason to go to art school. I didn't choose MMU or Manchester School of Art on any kind of because of any of the qualities of that place. I chose it because it was closer to the family.
Yeah.
Manchester was close to my family.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I was kind of scared of London. Really, it's kind of reminds me of Tehran. Really, like this massive beast that it's always using you. It's never you using London. It's always London using you. I don't know a single friend of mine who went to London and actually fucking used London, like actually fucking used the resources and everything available there. It's always the other way around.
Yeah.
You become a resource for London.
I think the only way you can do that is if you have the financial means to do it.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I realized it when I was studying there, was that you're with these like sets of people that range from like the poorest set of art students to the richest set of art students, and that huge range shows you how easy it is for some people at the top to kind of dive around societies in different places, and at the other end it's like how little you can experience London if you don't have any money, and how much like the place is centered around, like even like art wise around money, like to pay to go to exhibitions that you know in most places are kind of free, or even when you go in exhibitions and they are free, you're aware of this, there's money being transacted, there's galleries that are selling this stuff, which kind of like, if you come from like the middle of nowhere outside of Manchester, you don't really like recognize it at first, like why is this gallery looking like this, or why is this gallery looking like this? You think they're all the same thing, and then actually you start to differentiate them and realize that there's all these layers of money, whether it's funding or whether it's like being financed by X or Y or Z, or whether it's being sold, and then how it all looks. Like the reason it looks like that is because it is this. The reason it looks like there's all white walls and there's only a few things is because it's being sold.
That was my experience of, you know, because I come from this kind of working class background that has constantly been marginalized and kind of struggling, even back in Iran, and I've always been an outsider to the Iranian art scene. I never knew anyone. I had no idea how to get into art, even back in Iran, and I was always that kind of outsider graffiti artist, right? And then I came here, and you know, when I was younger and when I was a teenager and when I was a graffiti writer back in Iran, or when I was the beginning of studying fine art here, I was on the same kind of, I was in the same situation that I didn't know what's going on, which gallery is which, and what is the differences of the galleries. And then I kind of understood that I kind of think that galleries are amplified versions of the founders or directors of those places, you know.
And then so like within your BA and then eventually you went to an MA.
Yeah.
What was your, like, you were having studio practice and kind of meeting people at art school, but then what was your experience like in the wider sense of in Manchester or the UK of experiencing galleries? What were you looking at?
The most important person that I met was Ian Hartson, who kind of, we had a lot of conversations. So he was my tutor in the third year of BA. Right. And he kind of brought up this conversation that
so he is from a painting background. He has an extensive, amazing level of knowledge about painting, and he brought up this idea to me that, you know, there is a tradition and history to each medium, and if you're not going to use that, you're not going to rely on that tradition, the train of traditions and histories of that medium. Why would you use that medium anyway? So it kind of brought up this idea to me that, okay, I don't know much about painting itself, and I'm approaching painting from a fine art background, with a Duchampian notion. You know, I'm trying to paint painting in the right context to call it a painting, or this object that I call painting. I'm trying to put it in the right context to stage that it's a painting, and then I realized how little I know about these traditions and histories of painting, or Western painting. And so I started to study the history of and traditions of painting, and then I feel like I need to continue those conversations with Ian to the MA, so I jumped to MA straight away. And I think that was what I needed, because the subject of my works has always been about the chaos that I see around myself, that I'm trying to make sense of. But then to portray the chaos in a chaotic way on the canvas or any other surface is just extending chaos into the realm of visuals. So you're just basically expanding chaos again, right? You're just making noises again, right? You're just being an agent of chaos again, right? In the realm of visual, in the realm of perception, basically, right? So what happened during the time of studying under the tutorship of Dr. Ian Hodson was that I started to learn how to put things into order. So my painting slowly became about kind of disciplining an image, kind of putting all the chaos you see around yourself into order in one canvas, right? To kind of know why you're putting that you're putting down that specific brushstroke, right? What are you doing? Like kind of making decisions on a conscious level, which is kind of a really absurd thing to do, because you're not really going to change the world. It's like being a Sisyphus, you know.
One paintbrush.
One painting at a time. Or maybe you are doing it one painting at a time, one tiny step at a time. Maybe you're doing it in such a small kind of, maybe, you know, because our understanding of changing the world is still very much rooted in the you know, in the 20th century, where all the revolutions were going on, and the Cold War, and the Soviet, and America, and like everything was happening on epic, crazy scale. You know, maybe changing the world is not like painting a Guernica and then things suddenly it's like all over the news. You know, maybe that understanding of changing the world is just fucking unreal. Like it's just not realistic. So maybe changing the world is through like bit by bit, one painting at a time, one brush stroke at a time.
And so would you say like if you was to say your paintings were quality over quantity or quantity over quality?
It's definitely the quality. I've always, I think, you know, artist studio is not a factory. I'm not a chips factory to constantly produce the same chips no matter whether there's a war out there or not. You know, there's a difference between art studio and a chips factory.
Yeah. I mean, what if the idea is that like so there's some idea of like making podcasts where you should make like 2 a week or 3 a week.
Oh fuck! No.
But
Not
in
at
a
all,
way
like.
that it's like in a way that the quality comes through the practice of, so you're not making the same thing, you're doing like different things with different people in the same way you make different shows with different people, and the quality comes from the quantity. Would you subscribe to that? Or?
No, not at all. Not at all. Of course, your work will be, you know, improved one painting at a time as you go forward. Or maybe even not. Maybe that's not even necessarily. Maybe there is no. Yeah, I don't think even there might be necessarily improvement in every painting. No, I think when we were installing the show, I did tell you that I really would love to go back to that painting. Spectra.
And so then how do you square that with like you make a lot of work, like, and what I've seen, because like, this is why I'm gonna say, because I think you make a lot of work.
I basically don't have a life. I'm just making work basically.
And I think you make I think what I see is that you make a lot of work that like refines your practice, and then maybe you're dipping between some, but then also there's like an aspect of it where you have like specific paintings which are more precious than some of the like drawings that we saw in the studio visit, which are more like training for the like proper paintings, quote unquote, and that it's those that are about the quality, but actually maybe you forget about.
I think
the
there are
ones.
all sorts of factors involved that even if there are moments that even if I aim to make the best painting of my life, it just wouldn't happen. All sorts of stuff are happening in my personal life that would influence my practice as well. But I definitely don't think that like just produce works and the quality will come, it's nothing like that. I feel like every time you're going to paint, you need to kind of risk all of it. I really do see it like that. When the lockdown was temporarily lifted and we could go back to studio, I went back to studio to paint, and I felt so drained that I was like, okay, I need to choose my battle, or I need to curate my battles. I cannot win every battle in these paintings. I feel so drained, so exhausted that I cannot fix every single problem in these paintings that I'm gonna make. So I'm gonna choose one thing and work on that. And in the paintings that I made after the lockdown, which are small paintings on pearl paper, A3 size roughly, I was just thinking about color and brush stroke, and I was thinking a lot about depth, obviously, and I was thinking about, parallel with that, I was thinking about depth of painting, and I was thinking how could painting die? Painting wouldn't die unless it's a person. Painting wouldn't be a person unless it's personified. And I sort of think, what if I make paintings that every brush stroke is visible, and every brush stroke has characteristics and is personified, and every brush stroke is clearly clearly holding ideas about color, light, shadow, shape, these kind of things. So the paintings are, in terms of subject, are quite minimal. You just see one thing, and then every brush stroke, every kind of thing is visible, and you can clearly see it's a battle about color. I think you cannot win every battle. You need to choose your battles. We don't have the resources to win every battle anymore. Studying at MMU is very much different to studying at that kind of Italian painting school in during the Renaissance. You wouldn't have the resources to paint like Rubens. You don't have the resources to paint like those masters. So you need to choose your battles, what you want to work on. And if you can paint like those masters on that level, not the aesthetics, I'm not talking about the subject or aesthetics or anything like that. I'm not thinking about repainting all those masterpieces. I'm not suggesting that that's a stupid idea. But I'm just saying that if you can't paint on that level of knowledge and skill, then great for you. You should definitely do it. You shouldn't make stupid paintings, then do that and make amazing paintings. But I don't have that. I've never had the similar trainings, or I don't have the similar resources. So every time I'm going to studio, I have to choose what is my battle with this painting.
I like when you're talking about resources, you're kind of like more talking about time, like isn't it? Like
it's
the time is the biggest thing.
Definitely time is the biggest of them, definitely.
Because if you imagine those people, whoever they are, but someone in the 16th century, 17th century who's making paintings, they've really probably got way more time than we have right now.
Francisco Goya wasn't working in a takeaway and then going to studio to paint, obviously,
Maybe it wasn't. It's a time where there's so much free time.
There was money, there was time, there was support. They didn't need to apply to opportunities online. You know what I mean? The opportunity was given. If you could do it, it was given to you. The commissions were given to you. They didn't need to go fill out forms and write 6,000 words why they should get this commission.
I like the idea of like Goya's 6,000 words and why he wants to make the
why this opportunity would make a difference in your career, you know. And where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell us a light-hearted fact about yourself. What is your ambition? You know,
if you had like obviously you said that you went to Manchester because of family and locality, but if you had an ideal situation, what, and maybe this could be UK, but maybe this could be globally, like where would you go and what would you do?
If I had had a passport and I could leave UK for education, I would have probably went to somewhere like Berlin, maybe, which painting is a bigger thing. Or America. There are a lot of scholarships and a lot of opportunities down there. And it's much easier to get a job as an art teacher after graduating than here. It's a non-existent thing here. So I feel like it's always the resources that is leading me, not me deciding that, I want to go there and then going there. You know, it's very much out of my hand. It's the opportunities, what is available to proceed. You know. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what, like, I've talked to like so many people before about it, where it's like the choice of MA is not often on the choice of where they want to go, more as what, like, how much is it? Is it free? Is it not free? Yeah. Is it £9,000 or £3,000? Yeah. And can I then have I got the resources to live in that city, or can I not live in that city?
Yeah. It's very much it's very much based on how much money you have, what scholarships do they have, and
so you said about Berlin, and like maybe I want to talk about like painting influences for just a sec, but like in your studio I saw the book on Neil Rauch and and like Matthias Weischer and some of those painters, and like what is your, like, obviously you kind of said you're looking at everywhere when you're looking, or you're kind of bringing all these references that are quite disparate, but in terms of like painting references, like who are they, and like how do they influence
the contemporary ones? So like if we speak about like the old masters, I'm looking at a lot of old masters. Recently I'm more looking at Piero della Francesca. I'm looking at that a lot. But then talking about contemporaries, talk about Berlin and Germany and all that kind of stuff. The new Leipzig school of painting has been really attractive for me for a few things. The story that they have, that they educated in, they're the product of communism. They're the product of Soviets, the product of East Germany. Like they educated in East Germany, they educated in a classic way. They learned all the techniques and skills and all the traditions and histories, and then now that they're free, after the East Germany, after the wall was taken down, now they could do whatever they want with that source of knowledge, right? So that's really interesting for me. That's really attractive for me. And maybe I see myself in them, you know. Maybe I see a reflection of myself in all those amazing stuff. That, you know, I'm a product of a revolution, of a failed revolution. You know, maybe that's why I love that idea. You know, Neil Rauch's paintings do look like a nostalgic, futurist, alternative possible scenario. Right? What if Germany ended up differently, or Soviets ended up differently? Kind of that idea. There is this layer to my practice that what if there was no revolution of 1979 and the bridge between Iran and the West wasn't taken down? What could Iran look like? Because I study, you know, Eastern art, as I'm interested in Eastern art as much as I'm interested in Western art, and I am fascinated by these Persian, Indian, Turkish, Eastern miniature drawings and illustrations as much, and I'm interested in those as much as I'm interested in Western, you know, Renaissance painting, as much as I'm interested in Western oil paintings. You know, maybe my paintings is there is this layer to my practice
kind of imagining what world could we have if Americans never orchestrated a coup d'etat in 1953, was it? And never toppled down the democratically elected prime minister because he nationalized oil, or maybe just contemplating what would have happened, what Iran and what Middle East and what Afghanistan could we have if none of this crap happened, kind of an ideal world. And I do kind of it does kind of, I catch myself doing really absurd shit in this direction, like there is this video game called Hearts of Iron. There are so many video games that you kind of start leading a nation in this video game, right? I love those games that not as in playing them, but I don't have the time, but as in this culture of creating modes for games, that there are people sitting down, spending hours and hours and hours and coding the skill, spending the skill coding kind of fan-based modes for video games to kind of imagine, kind of creating a realistic kind of scenario to Iran in that video game. That if in that video game, if you lead Iran, what other possibilities you could lead Iran to, for instance, right? There are these video games, and the most famous of them today is probably Hearts of Iron, and there are people creating modes for Iran, like a non-major player in that video game that doesn't fucking matter and nobody plays that, but there is some fucking Iranian around the world coding modes to see what would have happened if there was no 1979, if there was no 1953, if Iran was never invaded by the Soviets, Americans, and the British in 1942, just imagining alternatives to things, so there is this kind of collective kind of social behavior of constantly imagining possibilities right now. And I think that's one of the most important things about painting, most important functions of painting and art in general, that we drew seeing art and seeing painting, we kind of collectively, socially kind of practice imagination. So if there is this kind of critical moment in history that we need to think of possibilities and choosing possibilities, we can think out of fucking binaries. We can think out of Labours or Tories, which doesn't apparently exist in this country yet. I don't know. Or like you can find, you can find versions of that. Like in Iran, like the idea is that whether the Islamic Republic of Iran, whether the Ayatollah or the king, the monarchy, or you go to America, it's whether Republicans or the Democrats. There's always a fucking binary. Yeah. What if we can think beyond that, collectively and socially think beyond that, think beyond the fucking binaries, have a good imagination to fucking think alternatives. MI5 is gonna knock on my door tonight.
I like the idea of like what you talked about, like the function of art is to practice imagination, because I think it is. I think it's the thing that is kind of forgotten a lot, and that I think people like move to a point of making art, which is probably like is often because of art school, but then comes after art school, is to professionalize your art practice, and it becomes this decay of imagination.
Oh yeah.
And then this professionalization of some kind of
keeping a brand, maybe
keeping a brand or some imaginary practice,
keeping the style, keeping the brand consistent, maybe. Yeah.
And that actually, like I often find myself like sort of thinking about things like thinking like when you first like would do art as a kid, or even at school when you didn't have this concept of professionalism or professional practice, and how much more your imagination flourished, and how much kind of better.
That's because of the art market.
Yeah.
Because it's connected to money and art market and capitalism, and then in order to sell, to have a brand, and market loves consistency of a brand. Yeah. They need some guarantee to make sure you're going to keep doing that, because they're going to invest on you. So they need to make sure you're going to keep doing that shit again,
and you're not going to suddenly do something out of blue that is not predicted. You know, but then that's somehow in contradiction, kind of, to kind of practicing imagination.
Exactly. So it's like the consistency of a brand is like in contradiction to being an artist, or in other terms, like making art in exhibitions, being a gallery, curating things and stuff. And then it's kind of this like.
It's really tricky. It's really tricky to do both. Yeah. It's really tricky.
And what you see is then the overwhelming power of capitalism and branding to kind of like, it forces people to go down this direction of we're just going to do the same thing repeatedly, and whether this is like an artist or a gallery or anyone in between, to have this consistency that, like, you know, so that Francisco Goya of the 21st century can write those 6,000 words about his practice because he has a consistent practice and hadn't had a mental breakdown yet, and like painted dogs in weird ways. And I suppose it's like it sort of makes me think about why I want to make exhibitions without physical publics, is to be able to practice imagination with people individually that doesn't have the kind of pressures of making things for someone else. Or kind of performing to someone else, like you're performing to an audience that is about to come, and everything is about them, and nothing, or like not enough, is about you. And that the situation that I've set with the gallery is to practice imagination with one person and do it in like a unlimited or like less time constrained atmosphere, where you're not trying to hit like a private view, or you're not trying to hit these deadlines that are actually often self-imposed. And are kind of about, you know, self-imposing like deadlines in the same way that capitalism self-imposes like the next Apple drop or whatever. And that actually, and if you remove those things from a gallery, just as if you remove those things from like a commercial world, you start to be able to practice imagination a bit better.
But the reason that I like, when you send me the email, and I said yes straight away, the reason to that was that on the same day I was having this conversation with another painter that if you make a painting, don't show it to anyone, bury it, human civilization collapse, 5,000 years later aliens take the painting out, it's still a fucking painting.
Yeah.
Because a painting, there are some qualities in there that there are things invested in that object that transcend it beyond an object and makes it a painting, and it doesn't rely on the context. A painting is a painting in any fucking context, right? It's not like fucking Duchampian ready-made art that is only art in this fucking context of the gallery.
Yeah.
Only if the gallery fucking authorized you as an artist and you authorize that object as an art.
Yeah.
Right? If I can easily put this in a gallery and write some shit about it and then turn it into some art. But then if I bury it and human civilization collapse and 5,000 years later aliens take this out, this will not be understood as art.
Yeah.
It's just some fucking object, you know. But painting is not like that. Painting is not this kind of theater. Painting is not staged. Painting is a fucking object with some serious qualities in it that is always a painting. It doesn't rely on the context.
So if you think about painting as this kind of isolated entity, so then how do you see sort of the exhibitions you've made, and I suppose especially the one we've made where it's not seen by people, but equally like the other exhibitions where...
Well, the difference between this exhibition and other exhibitions, for instance, I don't know, the Social at Workplace Foundation, is just the only the difference between them is the population of humanity minus the few people who saw it.
Yeah.
You know, the difference between them is still 8 billion something people. I don't know what is the population of humanity on Earth right now.
But it is that thing of like,
you know what
the
I mean?
amount of people who see an exhibition in person,
the majority of people would see it online anyway.
is close to zero.
Yeah.
Compared to the population.
The population of humanity, the difference is almost zero.
And therefore, it doesn't really matter. So
yeah.
In a philosophical sense, no one's seen it.
Yeah. If you calculate it through algebra, it's like zero almost.
Yeah.
The difference is almost zero. In the bigger picture, it's almost zero.
So this just suggests that you shouldn't open a gallery.
Especially right now that you have to people have to book slots, and there could be only 5 people in the room at a time. It's getting more and more limited.
Yeah.
And we are, with the lockdown, we are pushed towards virtuality one giant step further, as if reality wasn't fucking complicated enough. Now we have this kind of virtuality to it.
So do you see like exhibition making more as like, I'm just making a painting but it's bigger, like I'm making a painting but the surface is a room rather than a canvas? Does that make sense?
I think it's become so complicated for me that that's why other people come in. That's why you come in.
Yeah.
You know, that I feel like I'm already struggling, not struggling. I'm already kind of so busy with the painting itself that when it comes to making a painting show, I feel totally lost, and somebody should come in and help and do it. You know, and I'm just trying to. Again, it goes back to that thing like choose your battles. You know, I think the painting itself is my battle, not constantly struggling or thinking about, okay, what should I do to come up with a show?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's it. Making a show is all these fields are such kind of specialist fields of practicing that someone specialist, someone expert should come in, and I would just collaborate. You know, if having a painting show is a collaboration with a curator. You know, I absolutely don't. I've had kind of experience of let's have a show and some students or artists putting a show out, but I think it's a field of expertise. You know that I've never grabbed a book and read about curating. I have no fucking clue what curating really. I don't even have a proper, definition of curation.
Yeah.
I don't. You know what I mean? So like putting a show up becomes kind of another medium suddenly to me.
Let's just talk about the best exhibition you've ever seen.
Oh God. I went to Grimaldi Gallery in Berlin for 24 hours just to see the exhibition that was going on there. So I got on the plane, I went to Berlin, I went to the show, I went to the airport and got back.
Oh, wow.
And it was the moment that I was having a tutorial with Ian, and Ian was like, you don't know shit about painting. and he was like, you need to go to Grimaldi Gallery, and they continuously obviously always curate shows consisting classic paintings and on different themes and subjects, but it's usually always classic paintings and classic drawings and printmaking and all that kind of stuff. And then I went there, and there was this moment that I was just observing, just scrutinizing this tiny painting, not 50, something around 80 by 60 maybe, I don't know, not that big really. And the amount of detail in it was ridiculous. And then I was just scrutinizing it, and I could see that there are these German guards sweating like, dude, that painting has been there for 6 centuries, don't ruin it. Scrutinize it from close. And there was these moments that, you just figure out how much you don't know about painting and handling the paint and handling the brush, and you just don't know. You're not taught and trained really, and it's just a moment of humiliation to kind of remind you that kind of keep your feet stapled to the ground, that Grimaldi Gallery was amazing to just go there and see some classic painting and then come back and just 24 hours.
Do you think that experience changed?
Oh,
your practice?
it's like the moment that you go to cinema and the place is dark and you stare at screen, and then you come out and you feel like a bit like what the hell happened, like the colors and everything, and everything looks so awkward. So like, it was a moment of that, like and generally moving from kind of mixed media painting to just focusing on oil painting and mixing color and making paint and all that kind of stuff, all the things around oil painting that you need to do, was a similar experience. You kind of when you focus on perception, you suddenly see things you were not seeing before. Things wouldn't look banal and mundane anymore. You kind of through painting, you are kind of practicing perception as well, or perceiving more accurately. Becoming sensitive about perception. That definitely happens through oil painting.
So then maybe let's wrap up with this final question, which is if you had some advice for young artists, or you had advice for yourself.
Change your course to mathematics and physics. Don't study art. It's a fucking hell. No, I'm joking.
Or even maybe advice.
Don't
for
take things for
self.
granted. Don't think that you studied art, you're entitled to shit. You're not entitled to anything. You need to go out there and do things and take things and kind of You need to earn it. Being in the art school for 3 years doesn't mean you're entitled to anything. And make the most out of it while you're in the university. Don't go out every night drinking and doing stupid shit. Go to every fucking workshop. Learn every fucking skill that is provided in those workshops. And even if it's relevant to you and your current practice, learn everything. And use the fucking goddamn library, please. Use that library. Read shit. Go to workshops, make it worth it. You're spending $9,000 or whatever every year. Just make it useful, Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
Thank you, Pa.
You're welcome.